Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another third-party unlicensed 1/6 scale figure duo unboxing and review. Today we're taking a look at both Superman and Bizarro, based off their appearances in Superman and Lois, played by Tyler Hoechlin. Now I got mine direct from Premium Toys. These are review samples. That does not mean this is a promotional video though. This is still a review on two figures going in my collection after this video is done. All opinions, as always, 100% my own. Now if you are heading down to the description, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys or third party review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, this is some very clever box art design Premium Toys, well done. When you slide the boxes together, it creates one image of Superman, two halves of a whole, if you will, which does fit the theme of Season 2 with Ali Alston and all her nonsense, the normal self and the inverse self. On one side, on the blue card, we've got the glossy overlay of Superman, Tyler Hoechlin. It says The Saviour in metallic foil. Whereas on the red card, this is what happens when you do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs. You can see Superman, he doesn't look so hot. He's got the messy hair, he's got scratches everywhere, and it also says the Inversion in metallic silver foil. On the sides of the respective boxes, Superman symbols. For the blue one, it's going the right way, whereas on the red for Bizarro, it's been flipped. Around the back, the artwork is mirrored, so the text meets in the middle with the heat vision blast on the outside. And I particularly like that they've got the colours right for the heat vision. For regular Superman, it's red. Then for Bizarro Superman, it's blue. For his ice vision or cold vision, whatever you want to call it, it was blue in the show. I also would have liked if they'd flipped the text for the legal info on Bizarro Superman. I know it would have been unreadable, but let's be honest, you're not going to read the legal info anyway. Underneath the lids on the sides of the boxes, there are actually some quotes from the show, and it's stuff like that normally I would miss because I want to get through this unboxing as quickly as possible, get straight to the figures and get them out of the clam trays. I'm not just meandering my way around the box and looking for quotes. This time I did, and I'm glad I did because it just shows that Premium Toys, they genuinely care. On the side of Soup's box it says, "Not because of me, because you killed innocent people, 2 teenagers." Then for Bizarro, the other half of that conversation, "Only by necessity, because I needed those visions to stop." If you have seen the show, specifically Season 2, then you know exactly the scene that conversation is from. The question now is, who do we go for first? Today, I'm feeling a little bit like my inverse self, so let's start off with Bizarro. First in-hand impressions for him, I like the dark, dingy colours, the feel of the body is on point. And the tattered cape is a nice touch. The head sculpt, so far so good. For Kal-El, his outfit is significantly brighter in colour and his symbol is going the right way, good. Plus his head sculpt, whoa. Premium Toys, well done. What we are going to do now though is get all of their accessories, don't worry, more lies underneath these clam trays laid out in the light box, and take a closer look and everything they come with. To keep it nice and simple, all of Superman's accessories are on the left and all of Bizarro's accessories are on the right side. As for Soup's display base, it's rectangular, which fits in line with modern day Hot Toys DC figures like the CW Flash. He also has a rectangular display base. Up top we have the House of L symbol, and in the background it's a kind of dingy blue sky. You can make out some clouds down below. It's also nice and textural and grippy, so when you have Superman standing on here, he shouldn't slide around on you. Around the front, no nameplate, which I'm fine with. I would much rather them leave it blank and have it so that we can add our own nameplate, versus printing something stupid like the Saviour. Then up on top, an adjustable crotch grabber. Bizarro's display base is the same mold as Superman's. It's also rectangular. Up top we have the House of L symbol, this time flipped for Bizarro. And in the background, don't forget, on the inverse world in the show, they had a square red sun, and I think that's what this red is a callback to. Around the front, no nameplate once again, and up top, also an adjustable crotch grabber. I would have liked to have seen a flight pole in addition to the crotch grabber, just so you would have had the option for both. I've actually seen third-party companies do that, even with the rectangular bases. They'll just add a little screw port off to the side of the crotch grabber, and then you can add a flight pole. You have the option of both. It's not the end of the world that we don't have a flight pole. It just would have been a nice touch, given though it is Superman and Bizarro we're talking about. As for alternative hands, we have some open palm hands and closed fists already installed on the figures. The gestures look natural, they are the same across both. There's a decent level of sculpted skin texture. There's also some painted freckling on the surface, shading for the knuckles in a rosier colour. They've even painted the fingernails, which I like. For Bizarro, his skin tone is much paler and much more dead looking. They've also added some darker shading, because, huffing kryptonite is never good for you. What we are going to do now, though, is get Superman and Bizarro themselves out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. We'll start off with Superman first, and then we'll move on to his Bizarro self. And that's just how we're going to do it in this video. We'll start off with Supes, move on to Bizarro. Before we do talk about Supes, I just want to talk about the show just for a second. Because I don't think anywhere near enough people are watching this show and talking about how good Tyler is as Superman. If you asked me right now who my favourite Supes is, I would probably point towards Tyler. He, to me, is the perfect embodiment of a modern day Superman. He's a husband, he's a father, he has to balance all that comes with that with saving the world. And he cares deeply about what he's doing. He wants to save everyone. So to me, he is my Superman. I love Henry, I love Christopher Reeve, even Brandon Routh is awesome. This guy, he just gets it, and his performance works for me. In figure format, Premium Toys, you've impressed me. This is an awesome figure. He's not perfect, we do have a couple of things to discuss, but he's perfect where it counts. The head sculpt, awesome. The proportions, on point. He's big, he's muscular. The outfit looks accurate to the show, both in colour and texture and material choice. And the cape, it might just be one of the best capes I've seen in a while. Bizarro, he's pretty great too. All of that good stuff that I just said about Superman, you can copy and paste that onto Bizarro. If you're wondering why he looks like this in case you haven't seen the show, well, I was too, therefore I went and watched the show. A TLDR, there is a portal underneath the mines in Smallville that connects to an inverse version of our world. Basically, everything is flipped. Everything is an opposite. So the sun is a square and it's red versus round and yellow, for example. That's where this version of Kal-El comes from. And in his world, he was huffing green kryptonite because green kryptonite gave him more power. So it took its toll on him, and that's why he looks like this. His cape is in tatters, his skin is all kinds of nasty, it's scratched and discoloured. But they nailed the look. This is exactly how he looked in the show. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Superman's head sculpt. Dude, this head sculpt is unreal. I don't know what I was expecting. Going in, I was super hype. But I wasn't expecting a head sculpt this good. It's next level. The likeness to Tyler Hoechlin is there from every angle. The skin texture is nicely painted and sculpted. There's even some vein work around his temple. The 5 o'clock shadow is also textural. You can feel it sculpted into the surface. The hair is on point, accurate to the show. There's flow to it. The individual strands are nicely picked out. My favourite detail? There's a hidden party piece. If you bring in a UV torch, his eyes do light up, like heat vision. Now, yes, I would have liked to have had an LED light up feature. This, I think, is more than enough. If someone wants to point this at the figure for figure photography, it'll still work. It'll get the job done. There's a lot of life in those eyes. Also, I think that going with a sculpted neck, making it look even more realistic, that was the right call. If there was a cut underneath the head sculpt, underneath the chin, that would have ruined the realism on an otherwise pretty much seamless figure from head to toe. I could go on about the head sculpt and how good it is. I know we have to move on, so let's talk about the cape. The head sculpt isn't the only good thing here. This cape is fantastic. It's very lightweight, so it drapes perfectly over the shoulders. There are some natural pleats in it. The edges are hemmed, so you don't have to worry about them fraying. You do have this chevron pattern stitched in up the top. The colour of red is super vibrant and saturated. And there is some felt-like texture on the surface to add some visual interest. Around the front, it does tuck into the collar and it helps bulk up his traps, so it adds to how proportionate he looks and it's accurate to the show. Look at this suit. It's gorgeous. Some people, they've said that the House of L symbol is a little bit small. I think the shape is good, and there is some texture on the surface. It's a separate sculpted piece that's been painted and then glued on top. I guess if you wanted to, you could remove it, print yourself on a 3D printer a new symbol, and then pop it over the top. I don't feel the need to do that. It is an option for you though. The body is nice and chonky, the biceps are huge, he's broad at the shoulders, then he tapers down at the waist. You can make out all the muscle definition, an 8-pack, yes, go ahead and count them. There's also some shading on the surface and in the crevices to bring out all of that muscle definition. His pecs, well defined. On top of the suit, you've got screen printing and some panel lines which are raised. And the color, it's vibrant enough. The blue isn't super rich like a royal blue. It's more of a faded blue, so it looks like Superman, he's been wearing this suit for a while. Now up the top for the collar, you've got a couple of different options. In the unboxing segment, you would have seen the collar exposed, but in the show, spoiler alert, Tyler Hoechlin, as big as built as he is, he still wears a muscle suit. So they tuck the Superman suit underneath the muscle suit, which is what I decided to do. I reckon this looks more accurate. One of my favorite details about this body, or one of my favorite things about it, I should say, is that his arms go nice and flush down by his sides. There's enough give in the fabric, and there's a crevice there, so you can tuck the arm up and have it almost completely flush down by the side. And because the suit is a little bit longer, just like in the show, it covers up the wrist pegs. His belt is a separate floating piece, so you can move it up and down. You have washers in the segmented sections on the side and in the line work around the front. Plus, you've got this little symbol. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it is supposed to be there. And there's some silver dry brushing over the top to make the belt look slightly metallic. His thighs are huge, and with all of that shading over the top, that just makes him look even bigger. Down here for the boots, they're a split-cut boot design. There's a lot of texture on the surface. There's shading to dull down that vibrant red. And on the underside, you have some fully sculpted tread. And there's paint down here. Not often will companies paint the tread. Premium toys have. Right, so Bizarro, he might be even more detailed than Superman, especially with this head sculpt. It still looks like Tyler Hoechlin at the base level, but they've added just way more detail here. We've got scratches all the way down his neck. Really, they go underneath the collar. They've fully painted everything. And it's not just paint. These are actually sculpted into the surface. The fringe around the front is a separate piece of plastic, so it casts a natural shadow on his forehead. The eyes being this piercing green helps sell that expression of him being kind of pissed. Same thing with the lines for the furrowed brow. And adding this black shading around his mouth, it does indeed look like he's been huffing some kryptonite. He does still have the UV light up effect if you shine the torch on him. This time, instead of red for heat vision, it's blue for his ice vision, which is supposed to be the case for Bizarro. Around the back, his cape, it's still made out of the same material as Superman, but it's a hell of a lot dirtier. We've got schmutz on the surface and around the holes. By the way, there are a lot of holes here. You also have tattered edges. Down the bottom, it's completely tattered, and on the other side, yeah, it's tattered there too. They have singed the edges of the holes and the tattered sections, so you don't have to worry about them fraying. Which normally would be an issue, because if you're tugging on the cape and you're moving it around for posing, and these weren't singed and sealed, then yes, they could totally fray. Around the front, it's still tucked in up the top at the collar, and it's stitched in place, so when you are posing him and you do move this, you don't have to worry about it getting out of alignment. It's always going to sit perfectly. He also is wearing the Ali Alston pendant, which is removable if you so choose. The chain is metal, whereas the pendant section is made of plastic. He uses the same body as Superman, the same suit material being this kind of stretchy rubbery fabric with the screen printed texture on the surface and the panel lines and the shading and the padded musculature. But this time, it is significantly darker in tone, and they have flipped the House of L symbol. You saw with Supes, that was just poppin', whereas with Bizarro, it's a lot darker. They have added some silver dry brushing around the edges to make it look slightly metallic. The same thing can be said for the belt. They've also added some speckling of dirt over the top. This looks convincingly filthy, almost as though I could wipe the dirt away and underneath it would be bright and shiny, just like Superman. Not a ton to speak about down here. You've got some panel lines working their way down the legs, screen printed texture, shading for the musculature, and for his boots, they're significantly darker than Kal-El. You still have all of the great detail because these are the same sculpt as Superman's, but now being dirtier, it just takes it down a notch in terms of the brightness. They've also still painted the underside of the tread. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left, Superman, and on the right, also Superman, but the Bizarro version. These two, they're a perfect pair. They complement each other so very nicely. You can get Superman on his own and just display him with your CW figures. I don't think the same thing can be said for Bizarro. I think he only makes sense when paired up with Superman. They're the same height, they're on the same body. It's just that the head sculpts and the outfits are different. With Bizarro, the S symbol is reversed, it sits a little bit higher on the chest. He comes with the pendant, and his colour scheme is just significantly darker than Soup's. Next up, Hot Toy CW Flash, a pairing that I'm sure a lot of people are considering. In real life, Grant Gustin is 6 foot. So too is Tyler Hoechlin, so technically they should be the exact same height. They're not. Flash is ever so slightly taller. It's not much of a difference, there's not much in it, but there is enough that it does make a difference. Now, I'm not sure if that's Hot Toys' fault for overscaling Flash or Premium Toys' fault for underscaling their Superman. Either way, it's not a huge deal. Just grab some longer ankle connectors, pop them in Soups, and then he will be taller. Now, I'm starting to think that the issue might just be with modern Hot Toys figures being too tall, because this Christopher Reeve figure isn't. In real life, Christopher Reeve was 6'4", which is taller than Tyler Hoechlin's 6 foot, so this scaling, this looks pretty accurate to me. Going over Superman's articulation, he is on the same body as Bizarro. I do want to go through both of them just for the sake of completeness. Starting off with Cal's head sculpt, it's on a fixed neck and a ball joint at the bottom. Looking forward to there, going back to there, not quite enough for a flight pose on its own, you might have to use the torso to get that done. Swivel and pivot side to side. The arms will go up to there on some squeaky joints. Going forward and back, butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow going past 90, and for the wrist peg, a hinge and swivel. The torso crunches more than I was expecting given the rubbery suit and the padding. Going back to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The legs will go forward to there, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, ratcheted double bend at the knee going past 90. The boots are a split cut boot design, which means they'll go forward and back, swivel, and you get ankle tilt. Seeing as though you know what to expect now, we'll go a little bit quicker. Starting off with Bizarro's head sculpt, it's on a fixed neck with a ball joint at the bottom, looking forward to there, looking up to there, swivel and pivot side to side. The arms will go up to there, they will go forward and back, butterfly joint at the shoulder that hinges up and down. Swivel at the bicep, double bend at the elbow going past 90. Then for the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel. The torso crunches forward and back, swivels and pivots. The legs will go forward to there, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh, double bend on ratchets at the knee going past 90. And the ankle, still a split cut boot design, good for forward and back swivel and ankle tilt. Wrapping up on Superman and Superman, the inverse version. Now, they call him Bizarro Superman a couple of times, but I don't quite see him as Bizarro. I see him as another version of Kal-El. These figures are bloody brilliant. They're not perfect, they might be a little bit too short depending on how you see them, but for me, I don't care about any of that. I'm just so happy I have this Tyler Hoechlin's version of Superman in 1/6 scale. And two different versions to choose from, might I add. The standard classic Soups, the colours are nice and vibrant, but not overdone, they look accurate to the show. The head sculpt is outstanding, and the articulation is more than serviceable to pull off some decent poses. Then for Bizarro, he's just something different. It's wacky, maybe it's out there, depending on how you look at it, but he is also accurate to the show. He's kind of a warning. Don't do drugs, because this is what you're going to end up looking like. He huffed the shit out of kryptonite. Now he looks all kinds of nasty. I still love the figure though, and these two, they are going front and center in my CW display in the collection. Now, I do have to say thank you to Premium Toys for sending me these review samples. No, I have not said good things just because they sent them to me. They are just genuinely impressive figures. Don't believe me? Well, you can see them yourself and make up your own mind. Don't forget, these are unlicensed, unofficial figures. While you're down in the description, if you're heading that way, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.